G'day, community, and welcome to the Jock, Reynolds Supercoach podcast. I think it's round 21. It could be round 23. Who knows at this point in the season. I'm Lek Dog. Thank you to Telebeats for the music, and I'm joined by the whole crew's basically joined in. Patch, how are you?
I'm good, Lek Dog. I am good. My team's a mess, but we're late enough in the season that it doesn't matter, baby. It doesn't matter.
Play on, baby. Foz Daddy, you were looking gorgeous as always. How are you?
I'm good, mate. I've checked out from Supercoach this year and I feel so free. I love it.
Jeez, we're starting off very positively. All right, combined, let's just do a quick run around. How many trades do we have between the four of us? I've got 0.
I got 0.
Not a damn trade between the four of us. I mean, it's what we've always said. Do as we say. Do not do as we do under any circumstances.
All right, well, let's get in. So take all of our advice with a grain of salt. Currently, let's start off with the hot topic number 1. Shai Bolton is being outscored by Paddy Dow currently. Can we just talk about that?
No.
Shai Bolton was the saviour. He was awesome. He's now sub 400,000. Foz, what the hell is going on?
I'd love to be able to tell you, honestly. When Dusty went down, we all thought that Shai would be the one to step up into that role and, you know, get those CBAs and hopefully boost his scoring, because at the start of the season we saw that he had the potential to be quite a damaging player in that midfield group, but he hasn't transitioned into the role that we thought he was going to. The Tigers are looking at the barrel of potentially, you know, either missing finals or barely scraping into the 8. And Bolton isn't really being that impact player that we knew and loved at the start of the year. So he was everyone's saviour a couple of weeks ago, and he was a cheap trade down option from Dusty when Dusty hurt himself. And I don't know what you do with him. We're all holding him, I guess. We can't trade him. It's not like there's a medical sub button that we can click and sub him out just miraculously, but I think it's sort of just riding with it. If you can trade him, you'd probably be definitely looking at it as an option.
Well, Trigger Happy's asked us on the website, what should we do? So, Patch, what's your advice?
Well, given my track record, we spoke last time I was on the podcast about Bailey Smith. I traded him out, and it, since then has averaged 115. The player Shai Bolton has replaced in my side since I think it was about round 16. Has scored 80, 95, 86, 128, and 98 when I traded Isaac Heaney out after a run of 3 games of 55, 42, and 57. And I don't think trading out players is a good idea anymore. It's just...
I mean, let's entertain the idea of trading him, because there is a number of options that are being flagged and raised. And Clarky, one of them is actually on the website for Shai Bolton's teammate. And I didn't think we'd be saying this here, but Sydney Stack, midfielder forward playing in defence, $313,000. And seems to be playing well. 49, 45, 60. Not great. Pretty bad. On par with Shai Bolton. But on the weekend, we saw a 149 against the Fremantle Dockers, and he was everywhere. Well, let's look at some potential replacements for a Sydney Stack, and this can go for anyone that's affordable in that forward line. Look, I think actually, let's address this first, gentlemen. We'll go around one by one. I think if you've got trades at this point and you're trying to win finals, I'm using those trades if it makes my team better. And getting rid of Shai Bolton appears to be making my team better. If I'm going for overall rank, I've still got a couple of trades left. I've got Shai Bolton at F6. I'm maybe looping him with someone. I think I'm holding. I'm holding onto those 2 trades in case, you know, Patrick Dangerfield or Rowan Marshall or one of these guys goes down again moving forward. So that's my advice. Patch, do you have anything different to say?
Oh, look, just be prepared for the fact that it may burn you like it burnt me, and oh boy, that's a feeling that isn't good. But all the signs are that he's bad and shouldn't be in our sides. So logically, I can't argue against it. It's just the vibe, man. Like
The
I don't
vibe is
know.
not
I don't know.
bad, not good.
The vibe is not good with keeping him. The vibe is not good with getting rid of him. I just want to be able to say I told you so when he comes out and scores 130 in the next 2 weeks, which now that I've said that, he won't. So you've got to trade him out.
Come on,
I
man. We
think
all
we
have
can
to.
apply. So, Foz, I was just going to say, I think we can apply this. Do you agree that we can probably apply this logic to other guys as well? So we're using Shai Bolton as an example, but is there anyone else, Foz, that you would consider in this basket, like maybe a Tim Taranto or can't even think of anyone. Tom
Oh,
Highmore, Dyson Heppel,
your captain, Paddy Cripps.
Paddy Cripps.
If you've
Yep.
still got him, who's still got him? Honestly, I do.
Probably a lot of people.
I do.
Probably a lot of people.
Please
My-
don't. No,
my,
I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it.
Geez,
Okay.
I remember the start of the year, I thought to myself, oh, Tim Taranto, Paddy Cripps, Sam Walsh. I'll start two of them, and I picked the two worst ones. And I also didn't think that they'd be necessarily a keeper, especially on field. I thought one of them might be traded out and upgraded, and the other one would end up as an M9. They're my M7 and M8, and Lockie Bramble seems to be the better option at the moment, which is really depressing and sad. But I agree with you, Lek. I'd be looking at trading in upgrades, clear upgrades as well, if you're playing for finals, and if you're looking at your lineup and there's not really that much of a point of difference, or if you think you're just a little bit behind, trading a Taranto up to someone who will score 100 to 120 might save your season. Whereas going for rank, it's so valuable having trades, because if you do end up using the trades early and someone goes down with an injury, and you might cop a donut for the rest of the year, and you definitely don't want that. So it really depends on how your team structures and what your overall goal is for the year.
On that note, though, Foz, say you've got Shai Bolton at F6 and you've got Lockie Bramble and Jeremy Sharp at M8 looping. Which is your priority? Say you've got two traders left. You can get rid of one of them. Which one are you getting rid of? Are you getting rid of the rookie at M8, or are you getting rid of Shai Bolton in the forward line?
I'm getting rid of the rookie at M8. I'd hold Shai and hope that he comes good, because even when Shai does bad, he will score a 50 to a 70. When a rookie does average, he'll score a 50 to a 70.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think you go with the higher upside. Of course, there comes with that a price difference. Let's just knock about a couple of potential similarly priced or cheapish players. The first one I've seen a lot of people trading in this week, gentlemen, is Steel Sidebottom, who was probably best on for the Collingwood. If not, he was certainly top three on the weekend. $429,800. No Pendlebury around, so a bit more responsibility. Last 2 weeks, 109 and 123. I think that's pretty much directly related to Scott Pendlebury. And he's an affordable forward mid-swing. He's like the perfect next step up if you've only got limited cash for either a Bramble or one of these cheaper rookies, or a Shai Bolton. What do you think about Steel Sidebottom and Bottom, gentlemen? Whoever wants to take it.
Yeah, Steel Sidebottom. I like it. I think he is somebody who I haven't researched.
I mean, like he's a senior bodied Collingwood player. Like they're struggling in that midfield group, I would say, and he's the natural person to step up and lift his game from where it was early in the season, which wasn't terrible, by the way, as a forward option. He has been in a really shit vein of form lately, but the last 2 weeks, yeah, he's taken the responsibility, and I think he carries that in. They've got no offense, Foz, but probably not a too hard kill against Hawthorn this week, although both teams are struggling a little bit. Brisbane, which they'll rely on him.
Both of us had good wins. We beat Brisbane and they smacked West Coast. You're calling us shit.
Well, I'm implying it. I mean, they're outliers in the season generally. And then he averages over 100 against Brisbane and Essendon for his career. I like him as an option. The other guy, Patch, I want to throw at you, is Bailey Dale, who did good things again.
He's done lots of good things this year, to the point where you could probably call him a good option and a good player.
And
kind of
an
across
affordable
halfback.
one.
And an affordable one, most importantly, 478k. Yeah, averaging 95 for the year, playing across halfback. It's, he's been pretty consistent, pretty reliable, scoring mostly in the 90s or 100s, or actually not in the 100s, but scoring in the 90s or jumping up to 110, 120, 130 he did on the weekend. I think he's a really good option, especially if you've got a Carl Langford who missed for 2 weeks, came back for a week, and is now missing for 3 weeks. So definite trade on that front. Yeah, and I think Dale's pretty much as good an option as you'll find under 300k.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think he's a very good option. Does anyone else have a name to throw up in this?
I agree with Bailey Dale. As a Bailey Dale owner, I've quite enjoyed the ride. It's been pretty serviceable as a forward. And my last trade was used on Ben Brown, so I don't think I can talk a lot about forward options, but seems to work out against Gold Coast. So hopefully if Melbourne come home pretty strong, he could be a sneaky consideration, although a little bit of bias in that.
Foz, I want you to talk about one option who I am not allowed to talk about on this podcast anymore. Chad Wingard. I'm just going to step away from the microphone. I want you to do some talking, and if you hear muffled screaming in the background, ignore me.
I don't love him as a super coach option. He's always been very up and down, and I don't really know what his role is at Hawthorn, not only for the rest of this year, but then also moving forward, because he's an older player when Hawthorn's clearly going for youth. He's not an elite midfielder. He actually has, I think, at some stage of the season it might be different now, but he was the worst clearance player in the competition, where I think it was a stat, something along the lines of, and it might be completely, I might have butchered this stat.
Oh, look, if it's ragging on Chad Wingard, I'm all for it. Like, I'm all for ragging Chad Wingard.
No, but it was for players who had more than, I think it was like 30 centre bounce attendances. He had the lowest percentage of getting a clearance, with I think 1 out of 30 or 1 out of 40 or whatever it was. He's also he's a good small forward. We all know good small forwards don't score that well. And also Hawthorn doesn't get the ball down into their forward line a whole heap for him to actually have a lot of impact. So there are going to be games where Hawthorn plays well, he plays well, and the Hawthorn wins, and he scores points. But I don't think that that's going to be happening all that often, and I'd be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if he was at a different club next year, because he doesn't really fit our age profile, or especially with apparently his butting heads with a few players around the Hawthorn Football Club, and we're also exploding or imploding, I guess, internally.
Well said. Let that be a lesson to anyone thinking of trading in Chad Wingard. You've been warned.
Would love to see him somewhere where he's allowed to wear sleeves next year. Would love that. Don't mind if it's Hawthorn. Don't know what Sam Mitchell's policy is, but would love to see him wearing the sleeves next year. Gentlemen, a lot of people are trading in, your big names, Rowan Marshall, Zach Guthrie, Jared Lyons, who's very cheap, Marcus Bontempelli, who's remarkably cheap despite having just an 87 on the weekend. Like we've said it for the last 4 weeks. All of these guys, if you're listening and you're thinking about it, trade them in. It's these dubious calls that people ponder on and risk their seasons on. And I have a dubious call I would like to ponder on with you, and his name is Zach Butters. Obviously, he has had a rough year with injury, $388,800, break even is 87. I know that Azza started with him, and he looked like a damn good proposition after the first couple of rounds. But went down in round 4, came back in round 17, went down again. Now he's back again. 94 on the weekend from 22 touches, 6 marks, and 2 tackles. As a very, very cheap Shai Bolton-esque replacement. Is Zach Butters someone with upside that we consider, Patch?
Look, I don't love it. He's going to be an incredible player. He's going to be very, very good. Next year, we will probably look at starting him again. I don't love jumping on players that have been out for a lot of the year, that are kind of missing, big chunks of seasons. I get bad vibes out of doing that. I'd rather be looking at a Taron Thomas at 460k when he's back this week, or even like an Isaac Heaney who's hit a run of form again. I feel like there are maybe even like a Ben Brown. I feel like there are better options.
He said the thing.
Patch, you need help, mate. You just keep going back like a little drug addict. We need to get you into rehab, mate. Come on. You did it with Buddy Flynn and
Hickey.
Gawn and whoever Hickey, and now you're doing it with next week you're going to trade in Chatty Wingard, and even though you have no trades, you'll pay Tim Mitchell to however much it costs.
Brown paper bags full of cash representing his actual value. Yeah, no, I do need help, and that's why.
I like Zach Butters.
But yeah, no, yeah.
Thank you, Clarky.
I like him. He is obviously a very core part of what Port Adelaide want to do well. And I think you're right. I think it seems like even though he did have that long-term injury, they waited to bring him back in, which screams they wanted him to be as close to 100% as possible so that they can make a run home. So I think he's going to be pretty core to what Port Adelaide want to be doing going forward and into finals. And why not bring him in for your Supercoach finals?
Well, the fear would be, so he plays Adelaide this week in the showdown and Carlton the following week. The worry would be what happens against the Bulldogs in round 23. And if you're relying on him to go big in that round, you might. He averages 101 against them, but geez, they're a pretty good footy unit.
I think Port can do it. I think Port will want to make a strong showing going into the finals. They've shown some of their best football this year, and also some of their worst. But I think, regardless of that, they want the ball to go to Zach Butters. They want him to be right up there with what's happening. Sorry. They want him to be really, really good. I think it comes back to that role. Like if it's somebody who's going to get the ball and somebody that they feel confident in their ability, then that screams to me that there's a little bit of sense in the pick, especially if you're on a budget, shopping on a budget.
Yeah, I don't mind the logic there, fellas. I think we swing things back into defence because we've covered some forwards and some mids, and I think mids are easier to dissect because you kind of your choices are much higher in the midfield, and we might spend some time on it, but I want to look at defence first because here are some of the names jumping out as me as the most traded in this round. They scare the shit out of me, fellas. Zach Guthrie, Tom Doedee, Hayden Young, Jeremy Howe, who turned up upon his return at 436. Let's talk Jeremy Howe, Patch. Is the marking man 10 marks in his return? Is he someone that we could look at? 436k still has a break even of 144.
I mean, legally, sure, you're allowed to look at him. Like technically, there's nothing stopping you. You got Hawthorn, Brisbane, Essendon in his last couple. He's good at football, but what I said about Zach Butters kind of rings true here. I don't love looking at a player that's missed a chunk of footy, and he looked good on the way back. He's cheap, but that injury history scares me, and chances are this will be your last trade or two. I wouldn't be jumping at it.
Yeah, I feel similarly.
I mean, you could do worse, but you could probably do better.
I think we could definitely do better. These names like Doedee, who's had 2 tons in a row, Zach Guthrie, who's had his best career game ever, Hayden Young, who's had his best career game ever. I'm avoiding all of these players if I'm a coach out there. I think there's value in guys like Luke Ryan, who we feel like hasn't had an amazing season, but averaging 101 and he's priced at 481,000. He's affordable. And even like a guy like James Harms, whose floor is really low, but his ceiling is really high. He's $388,000. If I had no money, I'd still prefer to look at him over like a Jeremy Howe. It's like a 60k saving, and I think I'd rather have that cash if I had more than one trade left. So there's plenty of options in defence, but some of the names we're throwing up are really making me feel quite ill, fellas.
People getting desperate. Desperate times call for big brain moves. Hayden Young.
What about, do we have any rookies on the horizon we need to look at as well? Let's assume people still have multiple trades, or maybe they just need a cheap player. One of the questions we had through asked, is it worth trading in a loophole and a premium, or should I trade in a playing rookie and a premium? So let's go around the table. What do you think, Foz? Would you be looking to trade in a loophole, or do you want playing players with your trades?
It depends what you've got on your bench. If you've already got a playing player like a Lockie Bramble, I'd be looking at a loophole option. See who's got multiple Sunday games and bring in a bargain basement 102k rookie. Because if Bramble scores 80, I'd probably take that over a Cripper score. I don't know. I'd probably bank the safe points. And then if he goes and scores 120, then you're like, well, definitely I'll take him over him or Taranto. You could probably take him over some of your other premiums as well. If you don't have cover on your bench and you're looking to trade out like Cripps to Walsh, and then you can downgrade a non-playing rookie to another rookie, I'd be looking at someone who's got some security at this stage of the season. If they're rookie priced and they're playing, their security probably isn't great anyway. But if they're playing, then I'd rather some cover just in case. You'd rather they're 40 over a 0. So that's what I think anyway. What about you, Clarkey? What do you think?
Look, you pretty much covered it off. It's very situational. I think who have you been loopholing beforehand? If you don't have a loophole and you're using all of your trades, you're going all out, bring in your premium, bring in a loophole player. That makes sense. So you've got somebody who you can use. I can't see many circumstances where you'd need a playing rookie, though. It's perfectly honest from what I'm looking at, how it's looking for the rest of the season. Unless you have multiple trades, in which case, holy cow, how have you done it? Can you please help?
Yeah, come and do the podcast.
Yeah,
I know personally, Clarky, I don't have any cover currently in defense. Both my rookies in defense are injured at the moment, which is super awesome. So I'd love to be able to bring in like a James Peatling or something, or even swing back one of my mid defenders. And funnily enough, my loops prevented me. Like, I don't have a way of looping in my forward line anymore, lack of trades. So Paddy Dow scoring 89 on my bench and me thinking probably should have just played him over Shai Bolton does hurt. So I can see value in trading in a 0. If you're looking for rookies who, like, there's not a heap of attractive ones that have played that are on the bubble. James Peatling had 97 in defense. He did exactly what he's been doing in the VFL. Decent kick to handball ratio, decent efficiency. Lockie O'Brien is at the other end of the spectrum, 180k. He scored 91. The Blues are probably going to give him the next 3 games, so I'd say his job security is pretty good. But Josh Honey is a cheaper one. If I was looking at a forward line player who I am confident is going to play for the rest of the season, Josh Honey at the Blues patch is someone that they're just going to play him. They're going to play him for the next 3 games because they don't really have anyone else to play in that position. Ignoring that awkward silence. If anyone wants to tune in, we'll cut that out. The other guys that debuted this weekend, we had Jake Bowie, Nakai Cockatoo debuted for the season, played his first game. Nathan Kruger played. Joel Weston's played 2 games. Jack Ginnivan, but all of these guys are scoring like 30s. Is there any of those that scream more security than a Josh Honey?
If anything is to be believed that Damo tells me, Joel Weston has potential to improve. But I don't know what to make of that. None of those really.
I feel like every Fremantle player has potential.
Yeah, name a Fremantle player that doesn't have potential.
According to Damo.
Bless him. I don't particularly love any of those options. I think Jake Bowie is going to be in and out of the Melbourne side, and it probably only served really to give James Jordan a bit of a rest. He's been having a pretty solid year. So it's kind of a no from me. I don't know about Patch.
Yeah, I think if you're going for a rookie price player, you're probably going to have to sit around that 200k mark if you want someone that's going to definitely play for the rest of the season. If you're looking at outside of Peatling, I think you're going for a Parker, an O'Brien, someone along those lines. Like an Ollie Henry, who you think they're going to give him a decent run of games. Leo Connolly's looked really good for the Saints as well. They're all about that 200k mark, and you'd probably be looking to them if you need cover and if you need someone that's playing, as opposed to one of these guys that's pre-bubble or only played the 1 or 2 games. So I'd probably be leaning in that direction if you desperately need a warm body.
Can I just say I feel very bad for Joel Jeffrey. What an awful debut coming off a 9-goal haul in the twos. Gee whiz, I feel bad for him. I hope... Oh God, we're going to lose to them this weekend. I just know it. I just know it in my heart of hearts.
I hope Joel Jeffrey kicks 12.
Yeah, he will.
I don't feel bad about it.
Fellas, let's go around the table. Let's wrap this thing up because, look, we're just speculating at this point on shit players who probably aren't going to impact in a Supercoach sense. Let's talk captains, vice captains, who we're looking at going this weekend. And if you've got any surprise packets, let us know. And, I've been pretty consistent at the last few rounds with mine, McRae and to Titch. I'm not... Are the games locked in this week? Are they locked in?
How locked in can anything be in 2021? I mean, they were locked in until Saturday morning when they suddenly weren't locked in. So I guess they're as locked in as they can be for the moment.
We're pretty safe with that Monday game with Melbourne playing on the Monday. If you've got an Oliver or a Gawn, you want to put the C on. So I think there's plenty of VC options. So who do you like, Patch?
I'm loving Took Miller. Also as a Supercoach option, he's just very good as a captaincy option. And yeah, going into one of the Melbourne boys, like an Oliver or Petrarca or Gawn, are all very solid options. But otherwise, the Bulldogs play the Bombers and will tear them to shreds. So if you've got Bont or McRae,
or Dale, or English,
or Bailey Smith,
or Dunkley,
or Dunkley,
or Daniel.
Literally any of them, like Riley Garcia, just VC.
Mitch Hannon, C.
Riley West.
Yeah, I think the Dogs could go very large, but I'm going Took Miller at this stage.
Foz, if you can hear me, / if we can hear you, who are you seeing in this week's round of football?
It'll be Clayton Oliver for me, but if you've got Jack Steele, another great option.
All right, I'm going to assume Foz is dead. Clarky, what about you? VCC, who do you like?
Patch stole mine in Took Miller. Took Miller is going to be probably my solid VC option this week. But, boys, I smell an upset. Zach Merritt, sneaky option.
Ooh. I always knew I liked you, Clarky.
I smell blood. There's an upset coming.
It's my favourite smell when it's not coming from Essendon.
It's going to be hailing, Patch. Hailing goals.
Hey, they did that last time we played the Bulldogs, and that was not a fun time when it was hailing goals. When they got 21 in a row.
That there's only been 3 games where both teams scored 100 points this year, and Essendon lost all 3 games is amazing. So I hope it's raining goals because it'll mean Essendon loses.
Shut up! You're losing to Gold Coast this weekend, Fleck.
For the record, I like Tom Mitchell Titch. I've been VCing him pretty regularly this season. Averages 126 against Collingwood, and I don't know what they're going to do about him. Pods don't really have any pods. What about Sydney Stack as a pod?
No.
Averages 107 against North.
It certainly is a point of difference.
Other than that, yeah, there's no one I really am in love with this week. Jack Steele's always a good shout, obviously. Averages 103 against the Swans.
Ollie Wines in the showdown, if you have him.
I don't think historically he loves playing Adelaide, but maybe his average is just getting pushed down by the fact that they play each other 700,000 times a year.
Yeah.
Jordan Dawson from the Swans, if you've got him. Sneaky pod, captaincy.
I was hoping someone would mention him at some point in the podcast. Who's Buddy Franklin playing? Surely they're going to... He's playing St Kilda.
They do play St Kilda. Azza had an incredible stat the other day. He messaged me after the Panic Room Live last week, where he brought up Tom Hawkins' round 19 average, where Hawkins averages 100 and something in round 19 every year. Buddy Franklin in round 21 from last year back, 96 in 2020, 164 in 2019, then 141, 168, 101, 162, 129, 141 in round 21s.
He likes round 21,
He likes
and he
round
averages
21.
96 against the Saints, and Harry Mackay kicked 5 against them. Charlie Curnow kicked 1. I like it. I like it as a YOLO pod.
It's a semi-final, baby. You got to do what you got to do.
All right, fellas, we might wrap this up because, God, it's been beautiful seeing all your faces, but it has destroyed the internet and everything inside of it. Patch, thank you for joining me.
You wonderful human. It's good to see you again.
Foz Daddy, if you're there, thank you for joining.
Thanks for having me. Go Hawks.
And Clark, you beautiful man. Thanks for coming.
It's always a pleasure. Thanks, guys.
All right. Go Blues.